Welcome to this very special edition of the Author's Voice with KJ, a show where we explore the stories behind the stories. Here we dive into the worlds created by authors, discover their inspirations, and ensure that you walk away enriched and inspired. And today we have with us author Joanne Merrick. She is the founder of the Leadership Recipe and designs impactful programs that enhance communication, emotional intelligence, and team performance. And her global perspective, shaped by living in Australia, Hong Kong, now the USA, draws on her leadership roles at major organizations. And her diverse background fuels her fresh, practical approach to leadership development. And today we'll be talking about her debut book, Game On: Is Management Your Best Career Play? Let's dive into the story behind the story. Welcome to the show, Joanne.
Thank you so much, Ajay. It's great to be here. Hi, everyone.
You are welcome. Welcome back once again to the KJ Masterclass, this time on the Author's Voice with KJ series. So we'll talk about the book itself. But before the book, let's talk about your journey as an author. When did this, you got this idea of writing a book on management and all? So help us understand, how did this begin? Where did the inspiration come from? And how did you begin on your journey to becoming the author?
Absolutely, AJ. It started many, many years ago in Australia, where I was a young girl. And I used to spend a lot of time with my grandparents, as we did, I guess, in my generation. And one of my grandparents' neighbors was a lady by the name of Bonnie Bates. And Bonnie wrote a book. She was actually the founder of a company in Australia called Lifeline, which was which was the start of when, like, a suicide prevention lifeline kind of thing. And she was looking after the kind of the customer service element, and she wrote a book about it. So I'm going back 50 years or so, and she invited me to her book launch. So here I am, a young, 70-something, 7-year-old, and I'm in the middle of a book launch. I'm looking up at all the adults holding their cups of tea and coffee with their, biscuits or cookies that they were eating at the time, all chatting about the book with piles of books around me. And, AJ, it was at that moment that I thought, one day I'm going to write a book. And I didn't know what it was going to be about, but I knew it was something that I was going to do. So my inspiration goes back many, many years. And I think, some 50 years later, and I decided to actually do it. And I thought, where can I make a difference? What can I write that might actually change the way that people are thinking about an area that I had spent the last 25 years in, which is leadership development. And I came up with Game On: Is Management Your Best Career Play to really help people make a more informed decision to become a manager, rather than just fall into the role like the typical trust fall exercise that many folks do. And in some instances, it's for all the right reasons. It's a promotion after all, and it can be very exciting. But I have known many managers or leaders in my career that have maybe regretted that decision and wished they had have gone into the role with their eyes wide open as to what the practicalities, what the challenges are associated with actually performing the role itself. So I sat down and I wrote the book. It started about 5 years ago. And 5 years is a long time to be dedicated to writing a book. And it did take me a lot longer. I swear I wrote the book about 3 times before it was actually published. I changed my mind many times in terms of how I wanted to put my message out there, but finally ended up with this product that I'm very proud of, and more importantly, I really hope help people shape their career in a way that hasn't been available to them in the past.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what is this book all about? Is it about asking people to get into management, or asking people to desist from getting into management roles?
Great question. It's actually about both. It's really up to the individual. And I have a character that I've incorporated into the book, and her name is Zoe. So we actually go on Zoe's journey herself in making the right decision for her, having taken all of the information in the book into account. So I'm not going to give away to our audience right now whether or not Zoe does decide to go into management or not. They'll have to read the book themselves, but they will be given all of the information that I've come across in a 25-year career to enable them to do so. What I don't want to see is people moving into management roles for the wrong reasons, for reasons like perceived authority or perceived power, which is somewhat there as a manager. You definitely have a little bit more um, say in how things go. But there's also a lot more to be said about management in terms of how you guide and lead performance of individuals reporting to you, how you generate relationships with your peers, how you work with more senior people within the organization to get done what you need to get done. There's so much more to the role, I believe, than what a lot of people are led to believe. And I guess the irony with all of this is there's a lot in becoming or being a manager that people don't see. You know, if you think about it, AJ, we've all had a manager, or we all have, you know, we might even have a manager in our lives right now. We only really see a part of their role that impacts us personally. We don't see everything that they do that goes into being an effective manager. And that's the right thing. You know, when I was writing this book, I spoke to a lot of people, and one person I came across, she had 26 direct reports. Her HR department had given her 2 weeks in order to perform all of their performance reviews, get everything written up into the appropriate tool that HR used at the time, and have the interview conversation with each of her direct reports, all within a 2-week time frame. She found herself having to spend at least 2 of her own personal Sundays, 8, 10, 12 hours each day, in order to get done what needed to get done to fulfill her requirements as a manager to HR as it related to the performance of her direct reports. So her direct reports would never have seen that, and nor should they. So I give that as an example of there's a lot that managers do that their direct reports don't necessarily see. And this book will give them more of a behind the scenes story as to exactly what the role itself entails. And then with that information, they can decide for themselves whether that is something that they get excited about, that they're interested in, that really enables them to thrive personally, that aligns with their personal values, or not. And that's a very individual, it's a very personal decision, because not only does the result of the decision impact their potential direct reports in the future, it impacts their lives as managers and leaders in the organizations that they choose to work in.
Absolutely, absolutely, Joanne. So, how have you explained to people whether they are fit for a role? It's like, let me put it this way: it's like the astrological predictions, that sort of a quiz, and then
I'd
then
like
you'll
to.
see, you'll fit in almost every one of them, until this is so drastically different or so bad that you will not want to own it.
Right.
Everyone, even in terms of management, when you think, okay, you have this skill, you have this, okay, I have more than anyone else. And then how do you then discount yourself out when you are looking at yourself from a managerial position? If it were the case, a lot of these people who are very good in terms of their expertise, they would not get into management roles, but they do, and they flop. Many succeed, but many also do not. Help us understand
Yes.
from that, how do I self-evaluate whether I'm fit to be a manager or not?
Yes, one of the interesting statistics that I came up with when I was writing the book was apparently 60% of managers can fail within the first year to 1 or 2 years of in the role of being a manager, and that's actually astounding. It's pretty scary, actually. So not only will this book give insight to individuals as to what the actual role of a manager entails, I've also included an assessment element. And this assessment element is a self-assessment, but I have created an assessment tool on my website, which is theleadershiprecipe.com, that will enable them to go online and complete an assessment around First of out of all of the 22 skills that I've identified to be a great manager or leader, how much do they enjoy engaging in each of those skills? So, self assessment associated with that. So they go through and they do that first, and then they go back and look at their answers for each of those skills, and they then determine for themselves, well, where is my skill level right now as it relates to that particular skill? So they can either do the assessment in the book or they can do the online assessment via my website. The beauty of doing it via my website is if they're brave enough, AJ, they can actually send the assessment to external folks who have worked with them. That might be their current manager, it might be a mentor, it might be a peer, it might be, other people that they work with, and ask those people to anonymously complete the assessment on their behalf. So they get another person's perspective as to how much they enjoy working on each of those skills or with each of those skills and their current skill levels as well. And that's all done anonymously, but it can be amazingly insightful because as a manager, it doesn't really matter what you think, as it relates to your skills. What matters is the impact that you're having potentially on other people as it relates to your application of each of these skills, and then how other people perceive you as it relates to your engagement or application of these skills. So I created a self-assessment in the book and then created the online assessment, which has got the 360 element to it, because it is such an important component. And you know what? It's not finite. It's not scientifically based, but it is information. And as a manager, one of the most important things that managers need to be open to is receiving feedback about their performance as a manager from the people that they are engaging with the most of which would be their direct reports. They have to be open to that and to changing their behavior where things are working well for them and maybe where things are not working so well. Be open to it, be humble about it, change their behavior, and then move forward with as a better leader and a better person, frankly.
Right, Joanne. So, normal mortal will think, leadership is power. And when they think of leadership, even if they're talking about a mid-level manager, they will visualize that corner room. Okay, I will be sitting in that corner room one day. I will have no I will not be subordinate to anyone, and everyone will listen to me, and I will be the most powerful man of this universe. Why is it
Right.
that they don't look at the impact part? Why is it that they always think about the power part? Is it a problem that we humans are, or is it that they have been taught about leadership in management schools a different way? Help us understand from that point. That is why people do not want to leave any such opportunity of leading teams. That means more money, more power.
Right. I think it's perceived power, AJ. So remember, managers have managers too. And those managers often have managers as well. So realistically, you have some power, but it's limited. It's certainly not as much power as you might think that they might have. For example, I've worked in many teams where I, as the manager, have said to my management, I need more resources. And my management have said, I can see that you need more resources, but at the moment we don't have budget for that. I still need to get the work done that I have promised to get done with the resources that I have available to me. I need to find a way. And or I need to find a way to influence those people above me to try and change their minds. But there's no guarantees. But everybody, even CEOs have boards, board that they have to report to,
Absolutely.
and they have to be held accountable by. So the power is there, but it's not anywhere near the power that some may perceive that they have.
Absolutely. One more thing, Joanne, is that you talked about that you should ask about others how they perceive you in
Mm,
different aspects of leadership. Well, I can discount myself out. because I may think that I'm not a good leader.
Mm.
Others also may think I'm not good leader, but then so many leaders are chosen by those people from outside. They are
Yeah.
perceiving them to be the best leaders. They put them into that leadership role, and they
Mm.
flop badly. Why is it so? When others are looking at it from outside perspective, I am not looking at my own perspective, and still
Mm.
they are not able to look at me about my impact, but they are looking at it in a way that I'm not able to take that pressure of leadership. As you said, 60% of them fail. I don't get the chance to self choose. It's others who
Right.
are choosing me. This is an
Mm-hmm.
abysmal number. Means that shows that
Mm-hmm.
whose lack of understanding does it show about others, the team that
Mm-hmm.
chose me, or is it about me? Help us understand that here, because I don't think I'm not good, but if 10 people come and say, we have chosen you as the leader of our team, what will I say? No, I'm very bad. Don't choose me.
No, but I think we need to be open to learning. And that's what it is. I think a lot of organizations do hire or promote rather individual contributors to management roles because they're great individual contributors. What they don't take into account is that in many instances, most instances, the individual contributor role is very different from a manager role and requires significantly different skills. What I would be doing if I was that person that was thrown into a management role and I was unsure of my own capability would be to get as much education as I possibly can about the role of a manager. And that's one of the reasons that I wrote this book. This is a very succinct read. It's a very easy read, I believe, that will give them at least a snapshot into what being a manager is about. And be hungry for be thirsty for learning. There are many other online courses that are available for folks. Many organizations do offer management training, particularly to new hires, and I would take advantage of that as quickly and as often as was available to me. Another statistic that I came about though in writing the book was that a lot of managers are promoted to being managers around the age of 28 or 30 years old, yet none of them attend training, practical training on how to be a great manager until they're in their 40s. So they go a decade just relying on the skills that maybe they've been introduced to from their previous management without engaging in any formal learning. So I would encourage them just to be really curious about what educational opportunities were available to them. Read as much as they could. There's another great book that I refer to in my book, which is by Stephen Covey, a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So, Ken Blanchard is another great author, The 1 Minute Manager. Any information that they can get hold of and then personalize it, make it their own. And then when they are a manager, be humble enough to be able to utilize those skills in a way where you're open to feedback and open to understanding what you're doing well and what you need to be doing differently, more of, less of moving forward. And then sign up for that change, sign up for doing things differently, and take it from there. It's a whole new different ball game becoming a manager.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I want to understand one thing, and I forgot about, but let me think about that. But before that, this is one particular book. Anything else that you are writing on? Any other book in the pipeline? Anything other project that you are working on? You want the world to know about?
Oh, that's a very secret element, right? No, I'm kidding, AJ. No. In this book, I do hint to another book that I am starting to formulate. I've got nothing on paper just yet, but the I hint about it in this one as I think certain managers or leaders have, and I don't speak French, but it's along the lines of the je ne sais quoi. They've got something that people that make people pay attention and automatically see them as a great leader. I do believe heavily that one of those really important skills is to be a great listener. Oh, the other thing I was going to say, AJ, was when you start being introduced to some of these skills, you don't necessarily just have to practice them in the workplace. You can also practice them at home. Great skills like listening, like giving feedback, like collaboration, communication, all of those kinds of skills you can start to practice at home in a safer environment other than the classroom. So that's something else for folks to take away as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I remember that question I was to ask, who is this book for, Joanne? Is it for the would-be managers, the ones who would reject it, or also from the people who are selecting these managers?
Oh, that's a great question, AJ. I'm so glad you asked that. I've actually mainly focused the book for individuals that are thinking about becoming a manager at some point in their career, whether that is the best career play for them. But it's also for current managers who might want to start assessing where they're at now and what might be some of the skills that they want to work on moving forward to become even better managers. There's also space in this book for senior leaders that might want to read the book to determine whether the skills that we've identified there around great managers and leaders are actually being utilized in the right way or enough within their organizations. My hope, AJ, with this book, and I do know one organization that's already doing it, but I do hope that this book finds its way into the various talent management strategies of a number of organizations that are really serious about equipping their future leaders with the best insights, perspective, and skill awareness in order to enable them to be the best leaders that they can possibly be. So if they incorporate that into their talent management strategy, I would love to see more of that. I also run a course as part of my consulting business, which is called So You Want to Be a Manager. And part of that is so that I can stand up in front of the screen or in front of the people in front of the group and say, so you want to be a manager, let's kind of see about that by the end of this course, which I've run for many, many years, but have now reincorporated more directly associated with the content of the book. So my hope is that with those two things, that we can really start moving the needle as it relates to enabling folks to be the best managers and leaders that they can be, and thus enabling organizations and people to thrive in what is a very complicated workforce out there. So I'm hoping that this does bring some simplicity, some straightforwardness, some frankness, some openness to exactly what the role of a manager and great leader entails.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's so much to learn about all this from you, Joanne. And I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you. A lot of organizations would like to connect with you and learn more from about all this, and perhaps engage with you as a client. What's the best way for them to do so?
Oh, I'd love to hear from them, AJ. Any feedback for me is always welcome. And of course, I love any conversation associated with anything to do management and leadership. So they can contact me via my website, which is theleadershiprecipe.com. That's where I mentioned that online assessment. It's free, by the way, that assessment that I mentioned earlier is that they can contact me by there, or they can simply email me at joanne@theleadershiprecipe.com, and I'd love to engage in conversation with them. Be great.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of The Author's Voice with KAJ. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much, AJ. Always a pleasure.